Welcome back to GRC Explained Right podcast. The title says it all because governance, risk, and compliance can be confusing, complex, or critical sometimes. We try to explain it right. This is a podcast from the members of the ISAC Orange County chapter, created specifically for GRC professionals, auditors, and cybersecurity professionals. Learn from our guest how to translate GRC into business value. My name is Victor Monga. I am your host of the podcast today. Today, we transition from the public sector to the world of global SaaS and enterprise security. Our guest of the day is Jerry Sanchez. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Victor.
So, Jerry, I was going through your background, industry recognized professional in cybersecurity, cloud computing, with over about 25 years in the technology sector. You are currently the co-founder and managing partner of Framework Security. What does Framework Security do?
Sure. So Framework Security is a cybersecurity consulting firm, and we also provide managed security services. So what that means is we do a lot of risk assessments, penetration testing, security awareness training, but then we also help the vast majority of our clients with the day-to-day questions and around compliance and overall improving their overall security posture.
I want to learn more about that, the GRC and the compliance. So in the past roles, I see that you've been a CIO and CISO. So let me start this question with, when you founded your own company, what was the first thing that you did for your own company as far as goes to the GRC? What step did you take that aligned with the goals of GRC that you may need one day for your own company?
So other than the everything marketing wise and finding how do we go to find our clients and what services are we going to provide and what our competitors are doing, where the rubber meets the road when it comes to GRC is what were the tools we were going to use to manage our clients' cybersecurity journey and improve and ensure that they're compliant with whatever standard that they're trying to adhere to. And I think historically, for many, many years, especially previous to us founding the company, spreadsheets were probably the most common tool. They have, obviously it's easily portable and you can share those spreadsheets with anyone that's asking for them.
That's still pretty common. I've seen in the wild, the spreadsheets are still the common to manage compliance issues or the register, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Now there's a raft of tons of new SaaS providers and cloud
Sure.
applications that will do that as well. And they're Vanta, Secure Frame, some of the bigger ones. But I think for someone, and especially for us, I come from PlanView, which was a project management software company, and wanted to leverage best of breed project management tools for ensuring compliance and essentially managing the GRC.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Jerry. Like, as you transitioned and created your own company and consider some of the GRC implications for the audience out there who are listening, if someone had to start GRC today, if let's say their role was given to them or they stepped into one, what are the three things that you would encourage them to or help them understand if you want to have a GRC program? Here are the three things that you want to get started.
Sure. So number one, start simple. And what that really means is picking a framework that is for every organization to try to get to the higher level NIST standards. I'd probably start with the CIS 18 and implementation group 1. That really will accelerate, at least build that foundation. Number two is making sure that you have buy-in from the business, that this is an exercise that should ultimately be a business driver and reduce friction from a sales perspective.
Okay.
And then I would say number 3 is just making sure that you've got the technical expertise to walk through those controls with either internally or bring in somebody from the outside that understands not just maybe the tools that are necessary, but kind of what is actually the spirit of the individual controls and making sure that you're pushing then the organization to address those. And because it's not
Sure.
solely based on IT or security. A lot of these controls are around HR and process.
So not so much just technical, like slap a blinky box and off you go to get the compliance, if you will. So Jerry, validate this for me. I've seen both sides where compliance, on the name of compliance, you can get a lot of budget item because, hey, because of compliance, I need this, that, and the other. On the other side, there might be resistance that, hey, we need to complete our compliance, but we don't have a whole lot of budget. And I was going through one of the reports and it indicated that the cost of non compliance on average, more than twice the cost of maintaining compliance. Do you see that as well, where if I have to maintain compliance versus non compliant, that it's cheaper to be compliant?
100%. Compliance stops or enables sales. It stops really being an overhead or a cost center. From my background, PlanView, again, today a global SaaS provider, in 2008 was simply an on-premise software company. And when we were transitioning to SaaS, there was a realization from senior leadership that there would need to be, we need to do SOC 2 audit, and there's costs there. But the more uh, higher level costs are getting ready, doing
Yeah.
all the things in the development side of the shop, uh, and then obviously from IT and SaaS operations. So there was a pause where whether or not we even wanted to do that, but very shortly after we released our SaaS version, price customers just demanded it. Having that, having compliance and paying that investment up front will definitely kind of grease the skids for down the road.
And I think compliance also, again, we talk about motivations, like why should I care about compliance? Or sometimes it's just legislatively you have to, like if you're HIPAA, PCI, you just have to if you want to be in the business. Otherwise, compliance can be the reference, like a lot of the SOC 2s or ISOs or NIST. You can leverage that to show your customers that you really care about your own security. So if you're a security company or technical company, or even like these days, retail companies, you have to have SOC 2 so that your customers really trust you're going to take care of their data. 'Cause that's a big thing. So I was joking with one of my friend. He's a security manager, and he's like, cybersecurity is like brakes on a car. It's not there to stop you. It's there to give you control and confidence to move forward safely. And I think to me that quote perfectly summarizes GRC relationship with innovation. Like innovation, we're going fast, but that governance, risk, compliance, it's like not there to stop you. It gives you control and confidence so that you're moving forward safely. Do you see it that way? When you talk to your customers, you talk to your clients, do they align with that sort of analogy as well?
Well, I think there's a realization that that analogy is critical or valuable in the end. Meaning, most of our clients say they're a software startup and they realize they're selling to the enterprise. They need a SOC 2 audit. They're not exactly. That's not a priority to improve overall security. It's to get that checkbox so they can essentially sell their software to larger clients.
Sure.
When they get into that process, when they realize all the things that they're not doing, SOC 2 doesn't mean you're necessarily secure, but it definitely opens your eyes so that you can make those technical changes, process changes overall, um, to prevent a breach or, which could possibly, I mean, drastically hurt a business.
Have you ever seen compliance be the driver, positive force, changing the culture of a company? So let's say a company was not taking care of any compliance, or they were not SOC 2 compliance in this example, and now they are trying to be SOC 2 compliance, and they use that as a positive reinforcement that, hey, as an employee of this company, if we have to do better, or if we have to go through these technical controls or new policies are introduced because of the SOC 2, have you seen compliance being a positive reinforcement for a company culture to drive forward or accelerate their mission?
Yeah, definitely. So again, a lot of clients will just simply, hey, we need to make sure we have a SOC 2 audit report to show our clients. But going through the audit and going through the obviously the upfront part to make sure that you are compliant,
Yeah,
there is again a realization that it puts guardrails on the
sure.
organization and weekly check-ins. There's more verification that you're doing all the right things versus, you know, an organization that doesn't need to be compliant with any framework or
Yeah.
standard. They're going in 10 different directions and they're simply just not in sync.
And this also gives visibility at the top level as well, right? What we are doing. So maybe you have a project that's siloed, but it connects with a bigger program. That program has visibility all the way at the top. So your work, what you're doing directly is visible. So obviously there's accountability, but there's also reward as well, because now you're helping the company either stay compliant or be compliant, whichever case that might be.
Yeah, certainly. So all of these metrics in any good GRC tool or platform will be able to you'll be able to roll those up for the senior leadership all the way to the C. And there should be a lot of good metrics to define how many controls you're closing per week. What are those priorities of those controls? What areas or security functions of the
Yeah,
organization are being addressed and those that are not. And then what I've seen, which is really, really great, is that senior leaders either sales or CEO, when they're talking to the clients, they're expressing these metrics. So it's giving assurance to the clients that that the organizations are working really, really hard. Now it never ends, right? As new attack vectors come up, there's always going to be a new frameworks
sure.
come out, standards come out. You need to be constantly going through these cycles. But in the end, there should be a trend line upward that in terms of metrics and overall standards that anyone in the organization can share to the clients to show that improving the overall security posture of the organization.
You have managed so many cloud infrastructures as well when it comes to it. And again, having managed large migrations from on premise environments to major cloud providers. One of the reports I was also reading, the GRC platform market is expected to reach over $44 billion by 2029. You're in the right place, by the way, Jerry. And I think it's largely driven by the adoption of hyperscale cloud services. And again, your experience, your current work as well in the same space. What is the most common compliance control failure you have observed when a company shifts a core workload from traditional data center, on-prem data center, to a multi-cloud environment?
Yeah. So, probably the biggest issue is going from on-prem to a cloud infrastructure environment is the tooling is not necessarily the right fit. It's completely different, kind of set of issues. A lot of the larger vendors will say that they're doing great on both sides, but
Yeah,
cloud native solutions, especially in the security space, are really, really important. But I think the most basic foundational things are critical. For example, public S3 buckets and weak IAM. These things need to be addressed and reviewed and monitored on a regular basis. Otherwise, I wouldn't say there's more of an attack vector on-prem versus cloud, but there's a different level of responsibility.
sure. That totally makes sense. I want to switch gears and talk about like all the breaches we talk here that make mainstream media, like all the major ones, go all the way from Sony. They all have GRC, and yet they were breached. So that notion of where I'm compliant, I will not be breached, I think that's invalidated by the sheer amount of data to back it up. So let's talk about the TPRM, third party risk management process. So a lot of like significant number of major data breaches are caused by either vulnerabilities between the systems or humans. Like, hey, someone gave a password. As a consulting leader that you are today, what is the one critical step most organizations miss in their TPRM, third party risk management process? And how should a GRC team effectively and efficiently scale their monitoring to handle dozens or even hundreds of vendors without extensive manual efforts? Like what would you recommend that start with this way and continue growing from there?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest problem is that they sole objectives is to request and review a SOC 2 report. Again, SOC 2 doesn't necessarily mean that you're secure. And so there's a deeper level of due diligence that needs to take place. And there's a lot of ways to automate it, but where I tell our clients to start at the most basic level, which is simply send out a security questionnaire. Ask your client or vendors to not in just in a checkbox yes or no form, but write a little bit about how they're handling identity management, how they're handling vulnerability management. And the answers you get back aren't necessarily great, but what's wonderful is if you actually get answers back.
Sure.
There's a lot of vendors that hide behind this is our proprietary knowledge, or we don't share this, or you need 5 NDAs to relay that information. If they're transparent, then it goes a long way. And even if there's going to be gaps, there's gaps in every organization, but are they providing a roadmap? Are they expressing and detailing what they're going to do in the next quarter, the next year to improve the security posture and
Sure.
protect your data?
Jerry, would you have again, hypothetical, no names story that our listeners can hear from you about someone had started a GRC or stepped into a GRC role where they have to manage, and where did they start? What were their first three things, four things that they did, and how did they mature that?
Yeah. So again, picking an easy framework that is most important. I've seen organizations. I mean, you shouldn't even start with SOC 2
Sure.
because keep in mind, SOC 2 actually requires you to do an internal risk assessment. And so that's not a part of SOC 2. So you need to start with something basic and fundamental.
Like
Again,
what? Like basic, easy, fundamental. What would you recommend?
CIS 18 for sure. That
Okay.
is more modern. It deals with remote work, cloud computing, security awareness training is a big thing.
Sure.
But as you get through that, um, it can never hurt to also employ another framework, such as say NIST CSF 2.0. There's going to be some overlap, but as these frameworks,
Exactly. I think people can take credit of that overlap, right? So once you start the journey, and I have seen tons of overlap in a lot of compliance. So you don't have to start from scratch. Once you have something, as you said, as a baseline, you just build on top of it every time.
exactly, and keep in mind what we see for a lot of organizations is essentially configuration drift. Right? They'll go through an audit or an assessment. They'll set everything correctly. The auditor will walk away, or the GRC internal employees aren't watching what's going on. And
Yeah.
then 6 months later, because maybe they implemented a new application or made a major infrastructure
Right.
change, then they've opened up, they changed the firewalls, they've done something. So that constant monitoring and reviewing of all the security controls is really paramount.
You can't have a podcast and not talk about AI, so I must. So there's tons of AI out there, and the advancement of AI introduces new risks like algorithm bias, data breaches, data model breaches, the regulatory non-compliance, if you will. So when you are consulting in your current role, how are you advising organizations to build a governance framework specifically for the ethical and compliant use of generative AI? Or is the technology currently outpacing our ability to govern it? That might be it.
Yeah, so let's just say that AI governance and the overall strategy and then all the security risks are core service these days.
Okay.
Meaning you need to have AI acceptable use policies. You need to know what's going into the LLMs and what data should go in there. So what's really, really kind of again, the most foundational aspect is to have a really good data classification policy,
Hmm.
making sure that you know what is, and your employees know what can go into a public or private LLM and what is not, and what shouldn't. I think the most important thing is AI risk isn't a future tense or issue. It's here now. We're
Yeah,
seeing it every day.
definitely. 100%. Jay, if you have to, like, you see a lot of compliance and a lot of these framework programs mature over time as well. If you were to go back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, pick a number. If you were to say, hey, it'd be great if we had this compliance maybe introduced early enough or consolidated these two, what would you say? If you were to go back and probably fix one thing in compliance world, what would that be?
That's a great question. There was a lot of issues with earlier frameworks 10, 15, 20 years ago. Probably the thing that comes to mind is the PACI DSS standard.
Okay.
It was built only for on-prem, but they didn't update the recent version until like I think a year or two ago, so it didn't address anything in the cloud. So any AWS, any organization that was using AWS as an infrastructure there was just a huge gap in what the standard required
Interesting.
and what was
Yeah.
actually possible. It had a lot of language around just internal networks and stuff that just really didn't apply to
It was not
what.
relevant to cloud. Yeah, totally. Okay, sounds good. Well, that's all, folks. Again, Jerry, thanks so much for being on the show. GRC explained right, and you did explain us right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.